Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're continuing our mysterious what-if story. What if Kirei returned to Konoha? Itachi, Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi and Kurama changed forever. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. If you're enjoying the story, comment below. Kirei will change everything. Now sit back, relax, and discover what happens next as Kirei's return continues to change the fate of Konoha. Let's begin. Part 4. You know, one day I want to find out everything there is to know about you. I want to be the one you go to when you're angry or sad or just plain happy. I want to be the one who will always be there for you even when I shouldn't be. You are a part of me and I would hate to see you sad. One of these days, I'll find out where you are and I'll make sure that you'll never feel that way again. I swear it on my life. She opened her eyes, finishing her quiet prayer for her loved one. Of course, he was not there. He was either hiding from enemies or fighting them. Nobody knew, but all that mattered was that he came back. He would never miss her birthday. It was just the thing he always remembered to be there for. She sighed. What would it matter? She was turning 12. She was a big girl. He didn't have to come and check on her. She closed the window. There was no need to get her hopes up. Glancing around her dimly lit room, she quickly made sure that nothing she did not want to be there was there. You never know if a very angry villager was lurking around in your room. Kirei slipped off her sweaty t-shirt. She had been training all day after the academy let out. She wanted and needed a shower but was still very tired. The more she thought of the things she needed to do, the more she thought her bed looked inviting. She smiled and walked crookedly to her bed. Kirei, she heard. Her body tensed and she acted like she couldn't have heard anything. She slipped off her pants and headed to her drawer to get some shorts. Happy birthday to you, she could hear the soft murmuring of a deep voice. It had to be Itachi. She smiled. He came. Even if it was late, he still came. Happy birthday to you. She felt something warm pressed against her back and her body shivered. Happy birthday my angel, she blushed. Happy birthday to you. He wrapped his arms around her waist and squeezed her tight. Birthday girl, she was blushing and smiling like a little schoolgirl. You came. I didn't think you would make it. Itachi's face remained impassive though either of them could not tell because neither could see each other. I would never miss your birthday, he stated matter-of-factly. Kirei smiled and put her arms around his, her heart fluttering because of his closeness and warmth. You're growing, Kirei frowned. Is that a problem? She asked. No, you're getting closer to the age of 16, the volume of his voice dropped. I can't wait to give you my present. She blushed even more so than before. Itachi lifted her up and brought her bridal style to the bed. I think I would be too nervous, she mumbled as he lifted up the covers and slipped her underneath them. He frowned then removed his cloak, pants and shirt then climbed in after her. You shouldn't be, it would be fine, she snuggled closer to him. So, what did you get me? She asked cutely. Itachi gave a rare smile. How he loved to see her happy. He slowly bent down and gave her a soft, innocent and sweet kiss. He pulled away and turned on his side. Happy birthday, good night, but his farewell fell on deaf ears since she was already in La La Land. Itachi was not there when both Sasuke and I jumped through the window. Honestly, I could care less. He withheld information of my family and acted as if everything was okay. I mean, I grew up wondering what the embrace of a mother would feel like, what an affectionate look from a father would be like, yet he knew the reasons as to why, yet he couldn't give me this information. He was being a jerk. I don't care what anyone says, I just really hope he gets his act together and stop trying to cover everything up. It was dawn and the cold wind kept blowing through the opened window. I couldn't go back to sleep, I just had to think about things. About my training, I have improved a lot. My speed is more controlled as is my strength and chakra, and I even got a taijutsu style, to stop or reverse blood flow, the nerve system and vital system. If I practice a bit more I could master it. That's pretty cool. My genjutsu is getting there and my ninjutsu is flawless. Now, what about my life? My boyfriend is keeping secrets that would do well if I knew, and my village is terrible. A dreadful feeling stirred inside of me and I knew something bad happened. Something terrible, horrible and catastrophic happened. I stared at the ceiling. Should I get up today? It felt like my world was going to be thrown out of orbit. Maybe I should talk to somebody about it. I sat up on the bed and looked over at Sasuke's bed. He was staring up at the ceiling as well. Sasuke, I murmured. He slowly turned his head in my direction and I almost screamed at the dead look in his eyes. What's the matter? I asked, frowning. I have never seen Sasuke so void. I hate hospitals, bad memories, I nodded, remembering the fact that Itachi killed his clan and left him alive. He must have spent weeks in here. I think I would hate hospitals too. Is that why you can't sleep? I asked. He nodded slowly and I smiled. It's okay, I'm here if you need to talk. He gave a small smile. Thanks, but I'm okay. At this precise moment, the door was opened abruptly and I turned to see who entered. It was Shino and I frowned. I knew Shino woke up early, but this is ridiculous. Good morning, Shino-kun, I greeted happily. He did not respond at all and I knew he was going to give bad news. It seemed like I didn't even need to get up to know that my terrible feeling was right. I have unfortunate news. The Sandaime passed away fighting Orochimaru to protect this village. His fight did not go in vain, for Orochimaru lost the use of his hands. I felt my stomach knot and I stared down at my hands. Shino had to be lying or joking. I looked back at him and realized he did not look like one to joke around. The old man couldn't have died. He was someone who looked out for me when the villagers were on a killing spree. He actually let me leave the village when things got too bad. He actually stayed by my side when I was in the hospital. The funeral is today at 10 o'clock at the memorial stone. I have to inform others, so I would be leaving. I swallowed, but it felt like I swallowed a log rather than my spit. Shino walked up to me and gave me a tight hug. I smiled. He always understood how important the Sandaime was to me. He pulled away and gave a nod to Sasuke, then headed on his way. Well, I guess I should get ready myself. Kirei, Sasuke asked. I turned to him. Yeah, what is it? He shifted uncomfortably. Could you come with me? I raised both my eyebrows. As the great Uchiha Sasuke asking me, the dead last to accompany him to the funeral. Wow, I think I should write this down. This is amazing. He took his pillow and shot it in my face and I couldn't help but laugh. I guess he was trying to make me feel better and it was working. The end of the funeral. I honestly can't believe he's gone. I mumbled as I crouched in front of the old man's tombstone. My vision was blurry from my tears and the rain. Maybe it was his time, but why couldn't it have been when I was 30, when I could be mentally prepared to face this? I still need this old man here for Konohamaru and for my own selfish love. Kirei, you should go check in with your family, Sasuke said, holding the umbrella above me. I stood up and stared at him. What will you do? I asked curiously. He stared at me for a while, then looked back at the grave. I think I am going to go train. I opened my mouth to tell him that was a stupid idea. Before you say that this is a stupid idea, I need to get stronger to protect the ones I care about. I smiled. He knew me too well. I shrugged my shoulders. Well, I can't stop you, but just don't kill yourself, okay? Because then I would revive you so I could kill you again. He grinned and handed me the umbrella and headed on his way. I watched his retreating back, then turned the opposite way and headed home. Himitsu and Satsuki must be really worried about me. I walked on, trying to ignore the hateful looks that were sent my way and the way the villagers avoided me like the plague. I sighed. I guess nothing really changed. I quickened my pace. Those stairs were starting to get to me. The house looked empty from outside since there were no lights on, so I knocked on the door and was shocked when Satsuki opened the door looking like a wreck. Thank goodness you're okay. She latched herself on me and I smiled, happy to see a friendly face. Why, what did people say about me? I asked. She dragged me into the house and shut the door, then shot me on the couch. We saw what you did to that Neji kid at the exams. That was definitely not like you. We got so worried with this war thing we didn't even know if you survived. She began sobbing again and her makeup began to run. She looked really gross. You look really gross. She gave me a bad look and I rolled my eyes. I just think you should know when you gross other people out. She punched me on my shoulder. The Sandaime died and you could easily just forget about him and be happy. She asked angrily. I glared at her and stood up. Of course I am not happy. But for the sake of everyone else, I should be. I mean, he would have wanted me to be happy. We can't mourn his death when we are still living. That won't solve anything. I raised my voice and quickly stormed off to my room, leaving a speechless Satsuki. When people assume things, they are usually wrong and they annoy me to no end. I slammed my door and sat cross-legged on my bed and waited for myself to cool off. I should follow Sasuke's lead and go train. I don't want another person that I hold dear to my heart to leave me again. There was this rap at my window and I jumped, not expecting anyone to be there, but I smiled when I saw Kakashi-sensei reading his novel and getting soaked from the rain. I walked over to the window and opened it and Kakashi-sensei casually climbed through. I laughed. Don't you use doors? He stared at me. Where's the fun in that? He turned a page from his book and I folded my arms across my chest and stared. Is there something you want? I asked. He glanced up at me. I thought you were the nice one. Well, Indigo finally showed up and he thought that we should catch up with him at his mother's restaurant. Unfortunately, if I don't want to pay, I have to retrieve both you and Sasuke. He looked back at his book and I laughed. I didn't know you were cheap. I laughed some more. Where's Sasuke? Training at home. Are you going to teleport us there? I asked eagerly. He nodded and I jumped on his back. All right, let's do this. I blinked and we were standing in the rain watching Sasuke repeatedly attack a log sticking up from the ground. I smiled. Sasuke, come here. He stood up straight and stared at us for a moment then continued hitting the log. I glared at him. Kakashi-sensei, why don't you just teleport to Sasuke then teleport to the restaurant? Takes too much chakra. I like to be alive, you know. I rolled my eyes and jumped down from his back and headed on over to Sasuke who was soaking wet. He didn't even give me a glance. Did you come here to spar? He asked nonchalantly and I almost smacked him in the head. No, Ichiro came back and he invited us for a get-together at his restaurant. If you come with, maybe he would spar with you since he did go train with his dad and clan techniques. You guys can decide who's stronger. He stopped hitting the log and stood up straight. Alright, let's go. I held his hand and directed him back to our sensei who was giggling like a little schoolgirl, so I smacked him in the head. He was in the presence of a lady, he shouldn't be reading such things. I put a hand on Kakashi-sensei and I blinked and we were inside a smoky restaurant. I coughed, not used to the stench, and glanced around the room. My mouth dropped. There in the corner was Ero-sennin drinking a lot of sake with these two women who looked old enough to be my older sister. I pointed a finger at him and yelled, Ero-sennin. He looked up and stared at me, then laughed and ushered me over. I glared at him. Do I look old enough to drink? Kirei, I was looking for you. One of the girls sitting beside him rubbed her leg between his legs and he blushed and I covered my eyes. You were doing a great job looking for me. I turned to Kakashi-sensei. Are you sure Ichiro would own such a tacky bar? He scratched his head apologetically. Sorry, I went to the wrong restaurant. It's just across the street, why don't we walk nay? He smiled to laugh it off, but I was peeved. He was thinking of naughty things and brought us to a naughty place. Bad boy. I gave one last look at the stupid old man and I followed after Sasuke, who seemed to be darker than usual. I tapped him lightly on his shoulder and he looked at me in his eyes. Are you okay? I asked honestly. He stared at me for a while before replying almost automatically. Never been better. He continued on his way and I suddenly felt guilty. Why won't he tell me what's wrong? Maybe it's my fault he was acting like that. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. Ichiro was standing outside of his restaurant greeting customers who entered. When he saw us approaching, he brightened up and waved happily. He seemed different, maybe the fact that he grew a couple of inches or the fact that he must have an air of maturity surrounding him. I frowned. Something is going on. My wonderful teammates, how long has it been? He quickly led us to a table at the back of the restaurant where we could see the whole area clearly. At a nearby table I noticed Shino's sensei sitting beside Shikamaru's sensei, both looking on edge. Was there somebody here who shouldn't be? That set me looking around the restaurant for somebody who looked suspicious. At first I didn't feel or notice something. Kirei, you haven't said anything this whole time, is something the matter? He asked as we each took a seat. I shook my head. Nothing's wrong, I just know something's off, is all, I replied. He smiled. Well, hopefully that feeling will wear off. Suddenly I heard a growl deep within my mind and I noticed two people, both wearing the same cloak that Itachi wore, black with red clouds. Itachi told me that they aren't collecting me, seeing as I will join them. What is the meaning of their presence? I looked at Kakashi-sensei in the eye and he seemed unfazed, so I carried on. So, can anyone fill me in on what has happened so far? Everyone has gotten stronger, maybe even stronger than you, Sasuke replied. That started this all-out conversation between the two on who was stronger. I kept my ears open and watched the two Akatsuki members. They both stood up and left the money on the table and walked out. I wondered where they were rushing off to, maybe to speak with Itachi. I noticed both Shino and Shikamaru senseis got up from the table and followed the Akatsuki members. Sorry team, some rather urgent business came up. I'll be right back, so continue conversing with one another, Kakashi said, not sounding in the least remorseful. It seemed like the presence of the members were irking the Junin. I frowned. Maybe we should follow the members as well, just to see what was going on. I glanced at a depressed-looking Sasuke and a very cheerful Ichiro. No, it was better if I went alone. Guys. They both turned to my attention at the same time causing me to blush. I have to use the ladies' room. Ichiro smiled and pointed down a hallway. Third door on your left. He said eagerly. I smiled back in response and followed his instructions down the hall. The bathroom was empty, which gave me a chance to do a teleportation technique out of here. I took a deep breath, molding my chakra. I began to do the seals but stopped midway. There was something nagging at the back of my mind. Where would I go and who would I tell? Itachi once told me that he was part of that organization and that he was one of the many S-class criminals. I alone cannot be an aid to the three Junin. I would only get in the way. I should get Ero Sennin. I mean, he is right across the street. That seemed like a smart thing to do. I continued where I left off and poofed into the same smoky bar from earlier. I was standing in the same spot as before, but this time, Ero Sennin was sitting on the large chair alone. Ero Sennin, I called out curiously. He sighed heavily and stood up, not looking at me in the eye. Kirei, I am really sorry, he muttered, and I frowned. What was going on? He walked slowly towards me, but my instincts told me to run. I wouldn't, this is Ero Sennin. The worst he would do would be feel my ass. He wouldn't harm me. Nevertheless, I took a step back as he took a couple of steps forward. Don't worry, everything will be explained, he said, adding a soft smile. I looked at him cautiously. Since when did the old pervert show his affections? Quicker than anything I have ever seen was Ero Sennin's punch landing in my stomach, effectively knocking me to my knees and unconscious. I woke up lost and confused with the sun beaming into my eyes. It was at least an hour or two after noon. It was raining before, so why would the sun come out as strong it did now? I looked down at my body and realized I was being carried and we were moving at a fast pace. I recognized the spiky white hair and knew Ero Sennin and I were moving, but to where? Where are we going? I asked, hoping he could tell me that much. I noticed he hesitated for a second. We're on a mission to find the fifth fire shadow of Konoha. Her name is Tsunade and she is one of the legendary Sennin just like me. I blinked several times just to help me understand the situation. So we're off to find an old hag to be Hokage. Jiraiya went on a humongous explanation and description of this Tsunade character. He did agree she was an old hag, but she looked as young as 20. He went on saying she was on his genin cell along with Orochimaru and she was known for her super strength. But what made me laugh the most was hearing how much debt she was in. She constantly moves around because of the debt collectors. And when I asked why she was in debt, he said she was a terrible but addictive gambler. The council would like the legendary sucker to be their Hokage. I laughed a bit more until I looked up ahead and noticed a town. Anyo, Ero Sennin, why can't you put me down? I asked, feeling a sharp pain in my side. I need to keep you in my sight. I glare at the back of his head. Bullshit, I muttered, knowing fully well he could hear me. He gave a heavy sigh. Listen, we are on the run from two S-class criminals from the organization. Akatsuki, I already know that they are capturing Tailed Beast, but I don't understand why they would be capturing me, I said thoughtfully. I thought this leader guy would acknowledge Itachi's request. Speaking of Itachi, where is he now? When we get to the hotel, you're going to need a disguise, all right? Then you can wander around the village. Teach me something, I demanded calmly. If he thinks that he can just kidnap me and expect me to follow his rules, he is out of his mind. All right, I'll teach you something. It's called the Rasengan. With Itachi. I'm sorry, Itachi, I am not convinced that the vessel is strong enough. I already sent Kakuzu and Hidan to obtain her. Itachi clutched his chest where his wound was bleeding furiously. If he didn't get that closed up, he would die of blood lost. I do not want to risk anything, therefore I need you to stay here. Leader snapped his fingers and Zetsu appeared. Under constant surveillance of Zetsu, Itachi glared at Leader before bowing and heading off to his room. He regretted leaving so suddenly without explaining himself, but Kisame said it was urgent. The stupid mission he and Kisame were on was suddenly very difficult when the smiling image of his blonde came to view. No matter what he did, he could not stop thinking about her. He needed to go save her now. Hidan and Kakuzu would understand. Well, Kakuzu anyway. He was pretty close with most of the members and they all knew his situation. He needed to find Kirei before they did. Itachi-chan. He repressed a twitch when Toby walked through the door. Why was it that he always came when he was never in the mood? He watched Toby stand there for a few seconds before bending down and healing his wound. He blinked in confusion. Maybe Toby wasn't as useless as he thought. Thank you, Itachi mumbled while Toby nodded cheerfully, then headed down the hallway. He could sense Zetsu lurking in the shadows. What was it that he wanted? If he found out, he could use it to his advantage and get him on his side. Zetsu, come out, and he appeared directly in front of him. Can you do me a favor? He waited to see his reaction, but he was still listening, so Itachi continued, I need you to locate the Kyuubi vessel for me. Leader Sama, he grunted out, and Itachi knew he was walking on thin ice. I will not stand in his way. I would just like to speak with her before she meets her end. Zetsu nodded, expecting his proposition, and Itachi inwardly sighed in relief. Dealing with two people in one was very difficult. Zetsu calmly walked over to Itachi, eyes closed, concentrating hard. Itachi could care less of his method just as long as it was effective, he just wanted to make it on time. Hold on, Zetsu murmured. Itachi gripped Zetsu's arm with both of his hands and waited patiently for him to move. Suddenly, he was pulled into the ground and he relaxed, knowing fighting it would cause him to be split in half. He closed his eyes, hoping Zetsu hurried his ass up. Who knew how long he had until they found Kirei? With Team 7, Kirei is taking a real long time in the bathroom. Maybe we should go see if she is okay. Ask a calm Ichiro. Sasuke frowned. Wasn't Ichiro so bubbly earlier? Maybe it was just a front or something. There was no way someone could jump for emotions without an interior motive. Ichiro stood up and closed his eyes. It was strange, Sasuke could feel him gathering a large sum of chakra. What are you doing? He asked quickly. If he was planning on using a technique, shouldn't he go outside? Uchiha, shut up. Sasuke stood up and glared. How dare he, a lower-class clan, tell him what to do? He was definitely going to put him in his place. I know. Kirei followed Kakashi-sensei. He opened his left eye and looked over at Sasuke disappointedly. You carry yourself as a know-it-all, but for someone who does, you know nothing. He added a glare and closed his eyes, this time putting his hands together as if he were praying. That black choker that I gave Kirei also has a significant chakra signature that my clan can follow. It is an identification advice place on each of our members which is linked to the head family me. By gathering chakra to my seal, I can link my mind, body and chakra to the identifier and locate Kirei. It was quiet as Sasuke patiently waited for him to find a trace. He opened his eyes abruptly. There! He called out, doing several hand seals. Ichiro bit his thumb and a tattoo appeared on his neck which he casually smeared his blood on. He took a deep breath and smirked at the Uchiha. Well, isn't this interesting? Where is she? He asked sharply. Ichiro raised an eyebrow. Ready for an adventure. With Kirei. Which disguise should I do? I mean, I was wearing my short-sleeved orange jumper with matching orange shorts. I kind of screamed, look at me. My eyes, one white and black, also made me stand out from the crowd, not to mention my large whisker marks. Maybe I should try to get rid of the influences of power and finally look like myself. You know, how I was before Kyuubi started to heal me and before LK and DK came into the picture. How did I look before that incident? Maybe if I meditated I could look deep within myself and reject all those things. I mean, I am quite tired of staring at myself in the mirror and seeing what lies inside of myself instead of myself. I sighed and sat down with my legs crossed in the hotel room Erosen booked. It would take some time before I try to balance out everything so I could be me, Kazama Narumi. I should think about my mother and my father, even if they are not what I thought they would be, they are still family. I could feel my own chakra surrounding me, trying to regain control of my body. The chakra control exercises with Itachi and the meditating with Yami really paid off. After 3 hours, I was finally done and I could not feel the constant edging on of the Kyuubi's chakra and LK and DK's chakra. I sighed in relief and stood up, staring at myself in the mirror. Holy shit, I yelled, pointing a finger at my reflection. I looked at my hair. Instead of it being straight, it was long and spiky. I guess my father had spiky hair just like his brother, the fourth Hokage. My eyes were a crystal blue and whisker marks were thin, but still noticeable. I knew this was the last time I was going to change my appearance. Because of my meditation and control, I can finally call upon the chakra without it affecting me so much. Thank goodness. I was tired of going through these crazy looks. I guess I could keep on the orange. I mean, it is a wicked cool color. But maybe I should change the short shorts for a skirt. Nah, I get to move better with shorts. Smiling to myself, I walked to the door of the hotel ready to begin my search. If I was the legendary sucker, where would I go? Probably to a gambling bar or something. I reached the door and put my hand on the knob, turning it. The door swung open to reveal the 2 Akatsuki members from Konoha. One with short pale blonde hair and one covering the bottom half of his face with white eyes. I shivered. These guys had a very dark aura. Uzumaki Kirei, the white-eyed guy said slowly. He seemed so calm and uncaring, as if I were just a simple obstacle in his way. I swallowed slowly. Should I lie? Who wants to know? I asked in what I hoped sounded like a calm voice. The blonde-haired guy smirked. She looks like one of Leader's elite. What was his name? Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde-haired guy said and my eyes widened. That sounded like someone related to me. Could it be? Brother. Is he working for the Akatsuki? Hidan, you have a big mouth. You are lucky I cannot kill you. The blonde-haired man for who I guessed was Hidan laughed, clutching his belly. I love your company. He stopped laughing and turned to look down the hallway, a faraway look in his eyes. He clutched the strange scythe thing on his back and turned back to his partner. I think we should finish this quick. Someone is approaching. The white-eyed man nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. Can you please come with us? He asked calmly. I flinched. I would not move unless I get an explanation. No, Itachi said we could live peacefully under the Akatsuki protection. Why should I go with you when he is not here? I asked, taking a step back. Hidan raised an eyebrow. Is this the thing Kisame bitched about? He said, raising an eyebrow and glancing from me back to his partner. Kisame was right. Itachi did fall for a stubborn one. He pulled down his scythe and I tried to remain calm. I know I am outmatched, but I can least hope to stall them until Ero Sennin comes. Kirei, we do not want to use force. Please, come with us. No one will get hurt, the white-eyed one repeated. I clenched my fist and glared. Tell me what's going on first. I raised my voice. What's going on? To be blunt, we need the Kyuubi. He turned to his partner. Kakuzu, the sage is on his way. Just snatch the brat and let's go. Hidan said, turning his back to me and pulling his weapon in front of him. Kakuzu advanced on me and grabbed my arm. I grew nervous. If I fought back I would surely die. What do I do? Kakuzu suddenly hoisted me not so gracefully on his shoulders and exited the room. Hidan turned to face down the hall, which was to the right, and that's when I felt Ero Sennin. He was standing there, glaring. Who are you to kidnap my subordinate? My eyes became star-like. What an awesome entrance. Let's just hope he could back it up. Great, if we kill you, we're going to attract attention. Hidan began to curse and I kind of thought of him as the impatient type. Should I do something? Should I kick him in his back? Maybe I should follow Ero Sennin's lead. I glanced back at him and he was glaring at the ground. What the hell? What a strange old man. Ero Sennin, the enemy is right in front of you. I yelled, twitching slightly when he smirked, visibly relaxing. That brought everyone's attention to the ground from where he was staring at, and suddenly, this large black spot appeared on the ground and slowly emerged this half-black and half-white man with brown hair. He seemed kind of strange when I noticed the large plant that surrounded him. But the man who was holding his arm was Itachi. I haven't seen him in so long. Itachi, I murmured, his name seemed so foreign on my lips. He did not glance at me but stared directly at Kakuzu. I tried to calm down. It's not like he would get mad for Kakuzu holding me the way he is, right? Kakuzu-san, you do know that the Kyuubi is my territory, correct? Kakuzu chuckled lightly and fear welled up inside of me. What if Itachi was here to kidnap me and take Kyunei-chan away from me? What if he did not care anymore? Then when he left, was it for good? I could feel two people fast approaching and I prayed they weren't Akatsuki as well. Taking on 4 different S-class missing nin was not what anyone could handle, especially one Sennin and one Genin. The 2 people came up the stairs and into the hallway, laying eyes upon the scene before us. There, standing side by side, was Ichiro and Sasuke. It rolled off my tongue faster than imagined. I was shocked, utterly shocked to see him. What was he doing here? How did he know? I don't think they were at the restaurant for that long. Kirei, said a shocked Ichiro. I swallowed, my courage returning from his voice. Stay back, these are S-class missing nin. I could feel a large concentration of dark energy and I immediately knew where it was coming from. I glanced back at Sasuke to see him hunched over, holding his right arm with his left hand. He was gathering a great sum of chakra. Itachi, Sasuke began, and I knew this would not end well. Ever since that day I followed your words. I clung to the shadows, growing up alone only to hate, to kill you. Here you are, and I have gotten stronger, strong enough. Sasuke looked up. His eyes, not of the lonely boy I related to, but of a murderer, a cold-blooded killer ready for anything. I gasped in shock and squeezed Kakuzu in fear. Sasuke made a mad dash towards Itachi, tearing apart the wall beside him. The black-white man with a large plant surrounding his body disappeared the same way he came, giving a look to Itachi. I watched horrified. Would Itachi really kill Sasuke? I tried to speak up when Sasuke lunged his arm forward and a blinding white light causing me to shield my eyes. When I finally opened them, Itachi was holding Sasuke's lightning blade which to the ears sounded like 1,000 birds chirping. It pained me to watch the one that I love torment the one that I've grown to care for. I watched as Itachi gave a devastating backhand to Sasuke's face, instantly stopping the lightning blade as Sasuke flew into the wall leaving an indent. "Foolish little brother," Itachi said carelessly. I could feel my chest wallow in despair. Where was my Itachi? The one who loved to hear my voice. I squeezed Kakuzu harder, watching as Itachi pounded relentlessly into Sasuke, punching, kicking. I had to do something. "Why won't you stop them?" I whispered to Kakuzu. I wiggled a bit to try to snake out of his grasp, but he easily held me into place. "This is their fight, something they must solve alone," he said, sounding more amused than I would like for him to be. I watched the scene of Sasuke shaking to stand on his feet, coughing blood onto the ground. I was afraid. I was petrified of Itachi. Is this what he does when I am not around? Crush the hopes and ambitions of people. Destroy their pride. I was shaking. There was no way the man I love could not feel terrible for what he had done, or was it because of my anger he became like this? I shivered. Scary, isn't it? Finally seeing the true colors of your love. I froze as those words left his mouth. My breathing became quick as my heart tightened. "Pathetic Sasuke," Itachi muttered calmly as he shoved Sasuke to the wall, his fingers tightly around his neck, always getting in the way. I couldn't watch him land that punch to his already bruised face. I snapped my head in the other direction. Kakuzu swung me around so I was facing the scene with my feet on the ground while he held my arms behind me. "Watch them, the shinobi life isn't full of mercy," he whispered into my ear. "It's kill or be killed." I closed my eyes hoping to block the world out. This is what you were born to do, what Itachi was born to do, the man you grew to love. I couldn't take it anymore. I opened my eyes watching as Sasuke slipped into unconsciousness. I exploded. That's enough. Everything went still. I could even feel the calm breeze of the wind trying to cool me down. It was futile. I had to leave. Maybe the wind would back me up. I stepped on Kakuzu's toe, causing him to let go of me in a state of shock. He then growled and leapt towards me to try to catch me, but I hurriedly performed the shadow clone technique, masking my presence between the 10 clones. I ordered them to scatter and they each punched a hole through the wall, allowing me an exit if I leapt a couple of stories down. Without a moment's hesitation, I jumped out the window, making another 100 clones to scatter. If they wanted to find me, they better try hard. I couldn't believe my eyes. Itachi would do that to his brother. I don't understand. I saw good in Itachi. Why would he deceive me? I couldn't stop the tears from falling and I was not fully aware of my surroundings. I just kept running straight, not caring who was in my way or if I was going to fall off a cliff. Anything was better than this feeling. Great, it's starting to rain. I wiped my eyes and glanced around the area to try and pinpoint where I was, and I was surrounded by flat grass ground and a cluster of trees here and there. I frowned. Where the hell was I? Was I that fast that I reached the edge of the city? I guessed so and walked under the trees to stop the rain from dampening my already wet mood. But Kakazu is right. I fell in love with a heartless bastard and didn't even realize it until late. What did Itachi really see in me? The same evil. I suddenly felt very vulnerable, as if I was being watched, and I slowly turned around and faced, my day just gets worse and worse. I've been a ninja longer than you have, girl. I even met the founder of the village you protect. His voice did not portray any emotion he was feeling, and I suddenly welled up in fear. Something terrible, awful is going to happen and I am going to be the center of it. Why me? What did I do to deserve this curse? My father experiments on my brother and while he just disappears, as does my brother, who happens to be my lover's best friend. Not to mention my lover is some psycho killer who gets off on hurting his family. I have a demon sealed in me as well as some weird secret power. Do you think I need you chasing after me? I think not. So now that I am pissed, that I am tired and that I am ready to vent, I am willing to die fighting for the future. I could care less what happens to me and more about what happens to my family. The instant those words left my mouth, I disappeared, using my speed to appear behind him with a downward slash from my large circular blade. Tsuki. I expected him to move or effortlessly dodge, so I was not surprised when he easily sidestepped. I guess I needed to pick up the pace. This battle will be pointless, he countered with a roundhouse kick which I parried with my blade. You will just tire yourself out. Good, he was underestimating me. Both of us jumped back after the stalemate and waited for who was going to make the first move. When no one did anything, I slashed my blade 3 times without much effort and watched 3 large wind blades zooming towards him. Without a second thought, I twirled my blade to build momentum in order to launch it like a boomerang. I half expected him to dodge the wind blades and he did, so I took my chance and whipped my weapon at him hoping it was enough to distract him. Tasuke was ready to slice him open and I watched in shock when Tasuke went right through him and his body formed into a shadow before disappearing. Tasuke came back and I caught it and briefly wondered where he was. I cursed under my breath, it would only be a matter of time before Itachi and the others arrive, but how will I get out of this fight? That was pathetic. In my time, I have faced many shinobi but none as pitiful as you. You are not even worthy of me revealing my true form, he said from above me. I looked up in time to see a large water dragon headed straight towards me. I summoned every ounce of power I could muster into my blade and made a slashing motion at the large water dragon, watching as a wind blade easily cut through its middle. My eyes darted around the field in search of my attacker, ignoring the countless drops of water that hit my head. I could feel immense heat surrounding me and drawing nearer, so I began to swing Tasuke over my head, watching as a tornado began to form. My timing was correct and I was relieved when the 4 great large balls of fire hit my tornado. It was a struggle to maintain it, seeing as the fireballs did not dissipate as quickly as the dragon, and I bit my lip to keep from crying out in struggle. Finally the fireballs gave out and I stopped my tornado force field almost instantly. Quit hiding and show yourself. I yelled angrily. I was tired of playing games, I just wanted to finish this. My chakra signature must have already alerted everyone else. I winced when a sharp pain made itself known and I looked down at my orange short-sleeved vest to see it slightly scorched. Damn, the fire was a close call. Wait, you can control all the elements, can't you? He chuckled and I looked up to see his billowing Akatsuki cloak showing off the numerous stitching scars that tainted his skin. That's Kakazu for ya, said a cocky voice. I watched in despair as Hidan made himself known by jumping down and happily landing beside his partner. I didn't think you would fight back. He scratched his head. I guess you really wanted to be found, I growled. They acted as if I was just some plaything. I am a threat. I flicked my left wrist and watched as Hidan's perfect skin was tainted with the thin line of red blood that appeared on his cheek thanks to me. He turned to me and growled. I can still fight. I used my speed and appeared in front of Kakazu and began my wind dance. I slashed and kicked and continued my pattern, letting out a couple of wind blades when it was due. What pissed me off the most was the fact that Kakazu easily dodged everything, which frustrated me even more, and I tried harder, using all my energy just to land a hit. I knew I should have remained calm, but I was just so close. I couldn't give up now. Kakazu jumped back to avoid a very close wind blade from my quick and a downward vertical slash. I was panting and was having trouble standing. We finally tired her out. Quickly, grab her and be on our way. I can hold off the Konoha ninjas, Kakazu said. I growled in anger at being disregarded and broke any shred of a restraint. I tapped into Kyuubi's chakra and felt immense raw power covering my body, and I let my instinct take over. I knew she was stronger than me. I knew she could handle herself with these stupid guys. So from the back of my mind, I watched her charge towards Hidan and just tear him to shreds. She was mauling him like a rabid dog and I turned the other way. I gazed around the living room I conjured up for the house and almost fell out of my seat when DK was standing there, staring at me with such a black look. You know it was you who unleashed your angry sister. You should not turn away from your decisions. Her voice echoed off the walls while her lips remained sealed shut. I stared at. She changed so much. When was the last time I had seen her? All in all, she reminded me of the moon, mysterious, beautiful and pale. Her simple black dress did not stick to her, but her figure was apparent even in the rags. She took slow and easy steps toward me and I closed my eyes when I heard a blood-curling scream from the outside world. I know, I yelled at her, hoping my voice drowned out the screams. I was scared. Maybe angry demons aren't the greatest things to unleash on your enemies. Yes, but either you to him, or he does this to you. Another scream followed and I shivered, covering my ears again. Why was this war going on? Why can't everyone be in peace? I swear on my grave if I ever met the leader of Akatsuki I would beat some sense into him and make him understand that this is unnecessary. I took a deep calming breath and opened my eyes, slowly turning to the screen. What I saw would forever haunt me. Hidan was standing up, holding his torn and dislocated shoulder in his mutilated hand. I could barely recognize his body and his face. He smirked and it looked like the devil himself found his way onto the lost soul's features. I could feel Kubi returning. I guess my body couldn't handle 4 tales of her power. But if I go back to consciousness, wouldn't I feel the pain of her power on my body? Shit, a weak and wounded Kirei is not a Kirei for fighting off two Akatsuki members. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in the back of my mind and I closed my eyes. When I reopened them, I was back on the field on my knees panting with a throbbing body. I was in so much pain, I guess my willpower to kill them was enough to keep me conscious, or alive for that matter. I looked up from the bloody grass and stared at Hidan as his body slowly healed while the rips and tears on his clothing remained. Suddenly, his skin became black while white markings that looked like a skeleton appeared over the black and I refrained from a rude comment, I was just too tired. Hidan stood up proudly and cracked his neck with an arrogant air. I knew at that moment that I was not going to like what was going to happen next. Ha ha ha, do you honestly think that a possessed human sacrifice can harm me? I am a mortal fool. He was laughing when all of a sudden, blood poured out of my body as well as an immense pain. I let out a scream in agony and dropped to the ground lying on my stomach. With the last bit of my power I looked up at Hidan. What did you do to me? You should thank that demon of hers for giving me those injuries, or should I say, you, he let out a laugh and that was all I could hear. I could feel my life energy slowly drift away. Well, I said I was going to die fighting, didn't I? I always thought I would die by the hands of Kirei. Funny, that sounded a lot like Itachi. I felt so numb. Like I was floating. Where? I had no clue, but it was a wonderful feeling. It was dark, pitch black. I didn't mind because I could still see my hands when I waved them in front of me. I felt empty, like a part of me was missing but I had no idea why. I wasn't scared, just confused. What was missing? Was I dead? Was I alive? Where was I? Will I ever be able to taste Himitsu's cooking? Will I ever see Satsuki's smiling face? Will I ever taste Itachi's lips? Will I ever see Team 7? Will Sasuke ever forgive me? I expected hot tears to stream down my face but was surprised when nothing came. I needed to know what was going on before I drove myself insane with my own thoughts. Kirei, a cheery echo. How can this person be cheery when I was in such turmoil? Kirei, it's me. There was a shape of a figure forming in front of me. This figure turned bright white before the image of LK was sitting, cross-legged in mid-air. Her long white hair was in a high ponytail and her ragged white dress didn't seem so ragged. Her wings weren't visible. There was something different about her. Oh yes, her skin was glowing faintly white. Hello. Her cheeriness made me wince. Her lips remained firmly shut while she spoke, even when she smiled. I stared at her. You must be lost right now, hun. Her echo giggled while her lips stayed in its firm smile. I stared at her. What was I to do? I felt nothing. We're in your mind right now. I suppose you wish to know what has happened. I raised an eyebrow at her stupidity and her giggling increased. Suddenly DK appeared, dressed in the same fashion but black and her skin was also glowing faintly. Hidan transferred the wounds received from Kyuubi and gave them back to you. You were lucky to still be alive. The voice you heard was Itachi's. He had finally found you and when he saw you like that, his self-control snapped. I blinked. Itachi felt something. Maybe it was their imagination. Itachi does not care for me. Was Itachi the only one to witness my beatdown? Nope. Her laughing echoey voice made me angry. How could she be happy at a time like this? Jiraiya, Sasuke, Ichiro and Kakashi were all there. They watched when Kakazu and Hidan vanished along with your unconscious body. But don't worry, you're safe now. Something didn't seem right. If I was safe, why couldn't I be conscious? If I was safe, why did I feel like something was amiss? I frowned when I suddenly realized the constant pressure of Kyuubi's power was no longer present. Shock enveloped me and I tackled LK without a second thought. We were floating horizontally with me grabbing onto her shoulders hard enough to leave marks with my nails. I was angry, scared and confused. Where is she? Where is Kyuune-san? She promised she wouldn't leave. We're stronger than that. We're stronger than that. LK didn't have to answer my questions. I knew she was gone and I knew Akatsuki took her. How could Itachi do this to me? How could he lie and tell me that we were fine then make his colleagues kidnap and take away my first friend, my first teacher and my first member of my family? I wanted to know if my love for him meant nothing, the same way the bond of family meant nothing when concerning Sasuke. At this very moment, I felt lost. Despair was the only way to describe me. They cannot extract a demon without killing the container. That's where we come in. We revived you. If it weren't for us, you would have died and the world would be in darkness for eternity. Why is she smiling? I let her go and looked at where my nails dug into her skin. She sat upright again, her smile still on her face while the small little red marks on her skin disappeared before my very eyes. I looked apologetically into her eyes and I could feel her reassure me even if she had no pupils, just infinite whiteness. I sighed, I couldn't even cry for my fallen sister. What do? We fuse. I woke up with a slight headache but as soon as it came, it was gone. I guess that was the last of the pain I would feel concerning Kyuubi. LK and DK didn't fuse all their powers, just 1/4 of it. Still, I don't know how I'll be a ninja with gigantic wings on my back. I felt very stiff and when I opened my eyes and looked around, I knew I was in a hospital or some sort. The first thing that I noticed was that it was dark outside and that I was wearing a fresh new set of my short-sleeved orange vest and my orange short shorts. I sat up straight, the wisdom of both DK and LK overpowering my old sense. It was weird, I knew things that I would have never known and I could explain things that I have never even heard of before. It just feels strange the fact that I knew everything. Suddenly the air grew cold and I looked straight ahead. I smirked, he could never surprise me again. Yummy, my voice started off deep and cold like DK's, but the last syllable was with a light innocence. Wow, I sounded like a mystical being. I should say goodbye to my happiness because my intelligent mind was telling my naive doby attitude was useless in this cold and cruel world. Suddenly the shape of a man was known and the figure became distorted before a man with black spots on his pale skin. He was wearing a burned brown cloak with dead gray eyes and dead gray hair. This was the man who created me as Kirei and me as DK and LK. I bowed my head at his presence. It seems like someone has had a rough week. I simply raised an eyebrow at the length of time. I've been out for a week. He nodded and I let out a sigh. I've come to let you know some terrible and awful news. I stared at him, nothing could be worse than my situation. It seems the evil and greed of man has exceeded expectations and has gone off the deep end. To be frank, the council has it in for you. Just remember my warnings and I will be watching you. The distorted image returned and when it cleared, he was gone. I sighed. This gets better and better. I turned to my left and saw the bed for the first time and noticed Sasuke's sleeping figure. Why was he in the hospital? I closed my eyes and meditated. I should continue to sort out my new powers and wait for day to come. Morning came and when I felt the sun on my face I remained in my meditative state. I could the presence of others yet I did not care. Lying down and meditating was hard and needed my whole concentration. When I felt the sun shift, maybe it was about noon, I decided to wake up and greet the others around me. I sat up in my bed and saw Ichiro entering the room holding a basket of fruit. When his gaze caught mine, he saddened and I frowned. How are you feeling? If you mean how I'm feeling after the fact that they pulled Kyuubi out of me and I'm still alive, then I am feeling fine thank you. He faltered in his step when I mentioned Kyuubi and he sat down beside me anyway. He let his shoulders relax and he grew stress-filled. Sorry, I didn't know about Kyuubi until now. I stared at him uncaringly. He had nothing to do with this, why should he feel sorry? He set the basket of fruit on the bedside table. I thought this would cheer you up. He gave a soft smile and I smiled back. He needed reassurance that things would be all right. Where are we? I asked after inspecting the fruit in the basket and taking out a banana. We are currently in the same town as before. It was not safe to remove both you and Sasuke's body. I glanced over at him and he was still motionless. Itachi's parting gift. He used his red eyes. I stared at Sasuke wondering if he'll ever recover. On a lighter note, I get to accompany you in retrieving our god I'm Hokage. Excited, I was happy he was helping me. I needed to relax and enjoy what little freedom I had before I face my demons. I gave a cheerful smile before jumping out of bed and stretching. I finished off with a good yawn. Kakashi-sensei, I yelled out in shock. Why would he say something like that? Why would he suggest something like that? He's supposed to be my sensei, not my love life consultant. I studied his face noticing how serious he was. Maybe he knew something I didn't. I tied up my long hair and began stretching, deciding to ignore whatever crap was going to start falling out of his mouth. Kirei, don't be surprised, even Ichiro noticed. It might be a little weird at first but I say give it a try, you might be able to save him from his foolish idea of revenge, he said sternly. I stopped midway from my leg exercise and stared at Kakashi in wonder. Okay, he was serious before but now this is ridiculous. We got into this 5-minute staring contest until I looked away, a small blush to my cheeks. I already have a boyfriend, Kakashi-sensei. I replied, trying to control myself at the thought of Itachi finding out what my sensei just implied. In all honesty, I do not believe that Sasuke likes me, let alone loves me. They must all be crazy or something. Kakashi let out a sigh. I know who he is as well. I froze. Would he tell on me? Would he get me banned from the village or put to death for committing treason or something? I prepared myself to run just in case I had to. Sasuke cares about your opinion, and if you two were romantically involved, maybe he would let go of his idea of revenge. Kirei, the use of my name in such a tone made me realize just how badly everyone wanted Sasuke in this village. Kakashi-sensei, I'm not going to leave him for Sasuke. Never in my wildest dreams, I replied solemnly. It didn't really hurt me to say it, but I know it would hurt Kakashi to hear it. I watched my sensei run a hand through his lopsided silver hair, and it led me to believe that he'd been thinking of this for quite some time. Kakashi seemed disappointed but not shocked, and he turned to me with such a stern look I thought he might have scolded me. Just make sure that Sasuke never finds out, or it would be the death of him. I felt guilty because I already knew how he would take it. Sasuke would go around destroying buildings and whatnot. I already know that. Pov change, are you happy? You better be nicer when you speak to people. Kirei let out a frustrated groan. She'd been training outside for the past week hoping that she would be able to master a simple technique. When she had first found the big-breasted woman, she instantly hated her. She hadn't been in the village in like 5 years, and she was still mourning like everything happened yesterday. To make matters worse, she insulted the Sandaime Hokage, and Kirei could not stand for it. So both blondes went outside for a fight, and Kirei thought she could play fire with fire and try to use the superhuman strength, which had been something she'd been looking through since the journey and still couldn't complete. Tsunade decided that she was worthy enough for her to get her back through a bet. If she could master that technique, which took her 3 years, in a week, she would return to Konoha and be the Godime Hokage and heal all her injured friends. For the past week she'd been working on chakra control day and night without any stops, suffering from chakra depletion at least 3 times. She glared at the tree and with all her strength hurled a Rasengan at it, watching as the leaves fell down in large quantities. She placed some chakra on her feet and began jumping on the leaves to reach to the top. She was so close, one more leaf and she would make it. Suddenly, her energy left her and black was all she saw. She dropped to the ground harshly and a large thud echoed in the clearing. Ichiro emerged from behind the tree trunk and stared at his unconscious friend. She tried really hard, but it seemed she would not make this bet at all. Ichiro felt a sadness welling in his chest at the prospect of Kirei being unhappy because of her failures. She would be devastated if she ever found out that she overworked herself too hard. He bent down and lifted her up bridal style with ease and let her head rest on his chest. He noticed a rustling in the bushes and went into a defensive stance. Slowly, a dark-haired young woman arose from the bush wearing what looked like a robe. Ichiro relaxed upon realizing it was Tsunade's apprentice, Shizune. Ichiro noticed at once at her sad demeanor. "How is she?" she asked while she approached. Ichiro let out a sigh and stared back down at Kirei's peaceful face. "She passed out from depletion. I don't think she perfected the technique beforehand," he said sadly as well. Shizune's eyes grew darker and knew that our hopes had been lost. She should have known better than to put her faith in a child. "Let's head back to the hotel." Shizune nodded and they headed on their journey. Kirei woke up suddenly wondering if she was still in the forest, but relaxed when she saw Ichiro holding up a drugged Jiraiya. She frowned. Jiraiya was drugged. She threw the blankets off of her form and stood up hoping to find some answers. She heard a gasp and looked to her left, noticing a shocked Shizune. Her hand was covering her mouth and the towel she was holding had dropped to the floor. Kirei raised an eyebrow. Was she that ugly that people jumped at her appearance? She would have to find that out later. "How? You're supposed to be out for days," Shizune practically shouted. Kirei shrugged her shoulders absently, then turned to her arrow Sennin in wonder. "What happened to you?" she asked in a slight mocking tone. Jiraiya tried to stand on his own yet was having even more difficulty. That's when Kirei got worried. "Tsunade drugged him," Ichiro replied coldly. It was as if his respect for the woman disappeared as fast as it came. Kirei frowned. "She isn't in her room and she took her battle gear with her," he pointed out again in his cold tone. That's when everyone in the room turned back to Shizune, who had the gall to look ashamed. She went to go fight Orochimaru. He asked her to fix his hands and in return, she would return her lover and her younger brother. There was a large explosion and the 4 ninjas leapt out the window and headed to that direction. Slowly Jiraiya's sluggishness went away and he was strong enough to walk and run on his own. They made it to where once stood 2 large castles and now, it's rubble. Kirei pointed to the tracks of a large battle and they hastily began to follow, hoping Tsunade made the right decision. They arrived to see Orochimaru smirking in delight as he watched Kabuto and Tsunade fight. Tsunade was on her knees staring at her hands in shock and only Shizune understood what was going on. "Tsunade-sama." She called out running. Kirei glared at Kabuto and in an instant was standing in front of him with a chakra-charged punch to his gut. Kabuto didn't even have time to look surprised as he flew backwards, stumbling and rolling on the ground then finally stopping on a rock. Kirei did not hold back her malice towards the treacherous snake and continued on her beatdown. Kabuto slowly got up from the rock wondering if he was hit by a stampede of Oz only to look up and see the demon container heading start towards him. He stood up, a little sluggishly, and went into a defensive stance. Kirei decided to test her pressure point training to the test and began fighting at her high speed. By the dazed look on Kabuto, he couldn't really see how fast she was moving. She effortlessly hit with her index the pressure points on his right leg and left arm then sent a chakra-induced punch to his left temple. Kabuto went crashing to the ground several feet away and made rubble. Kirei was angry as she wanted this bastard dead for all the sneaky evilness he had done. She wanted him to be down and stay down. She walked over to his form noticing how his bruises and pains began to ease and she frowned. "It's called a bloodline, I heal," he smirked triumphantly and Kirei charged chakra on her foot and stepped on his left ankle. Kabuto didn't seem fazed meaning he had already anticipated that attack. Angry, Kirei crouched to his level and placed one hand on his stomach and another on his chest. Kabuto tried to get away only then realizing that his right leg and left arm were shot. Using his shock to her advantage, she created a Rasengan on both hands and watched as Kabuto kept pressing himself into the ground. Kirei, not feeling any remorse stood up from the 2-foot crater and stared at her hands as they soaked in his blood. She calmly wiped it on his clothing and turned to see how the legendary three were doing. Jiraiya and Tsunade were speaking with Orochimaru while fighting in taijutsu. "Watch out," she heard Ichiro yell. She turned back around and saw a kunai heading straight towards her. She used her speed and back-flipped away from the attack. She landed perfectly then stared at a panting Kabuto whose chest and stomach were in the middle or rebuilding itself. Kirei glared. "You were supposed to stay down," she growled out getting into an offensive stance. Kabuto stared at Kirei wondering when she became so ruthless, it seemed she must really want him dead. He smirked and wiped the blood from his mouth. Well, she was close to her goal. Kirei grinned maliciously and began to tap her back foot. Kabuto watched, entranced by her demeanor. His skin crawled as she licked her lips. Kabuto studied her, the blood on her shirt spanned face. The dark look in her eyes, there was no influence of the Kyuubi which made her bloodthirsty demonic attitude that much more intriguing. Kirei frowned, judging by his attitude and his lack of chakra, Kabuto will last between 5 to 10 minutes before he dies of blood loss or chakra depletion. Oh that won't do, she wanted to rip him to shreds before that happened. She grinned and using LK's power, an aura of white appeared as she removed her gravity seal. The fun begins. She ran forward aware of Kabuto's lack of ability to see her. All she knew he had to go on was INSTNCT. She hit 5 of the major pressure points and removed the feeling in his limbs. She smirked then slowed down so Kabuto could see her. She sent a punch to his face and she knew he anticipated it which was why it didn't surprise her when he dodged. It did, however, when he flung a pooch back. She played along and dodged a swell and let him go on the offense. Kirei was easily dodging and hummed a tune to herself while Kabuto put all his effort into maiming her. He had a plan, it just had to work. He lifted his leg in a kick yet stopped midway. What? He stuttered staring at his body. He tried moving his fingers and his eyes stared at her in desperation. "You see, my speed resembles that of lightning, almost godlike." Kirei mocked. Kabuto's eyes widened realizing what she was getting at. "You are the first person to see my full speed, well, more like experience my full speed. The fact that you can't move your body attests to the fact that my speed won, and I have succeeded in hitting pressure points. Well, any last words?" Kabuto's eyes searched for something on Kirei while Kirei's crazed happiness shone in the light. Kabuto was shocked, he never knew she was this strong, this fast. He opened his mouth to speak, to stall, he knew his arms were useless, but had faith that he would survive. If only he could say the same thing for himself. He froze, his words. He couldn't speak. Sorry, I forgot that I cut that off too. She giggled and a Rasengan popped up in her left hand, she grinned and stepped forward the Rasengan perfectly floating in her hand. "Goodbye," she shoved it in his chest. She defeated Kabuto on her skill, and the simple fact that he underestimated her. Kabuto went flying when the whole thing went inside his repair NG chest and stumbled along, his flapping along in the wind. Kirei grinned, no mercy, not for anyone. She was alone now, no one but her family, and what remains of her precious people. She didn't need to be with them, just protect them and she will be satisfied with wandering the place all alone. She didn't have to make sure he was dead, he was either dying or already dead. She shrugged, even if he recovered, he wouldn't last long, or, he would be extremely crippled, never to fight again. Kirei. She turned to see who had been calling her and noticed Ichiro running towards her. She remained calm and impassive, too content with the results to care about anything. Ichiro looked at her, noticing the specks of blood on her face, the blood-soaked clothing. His eyes did not hide his worry. Are you all right? She nodded and Ichiro turned to see Kabuto. His eyes widened, is he dead? Either that or dying, but even if he survives, his body would be useless to him. When I aim to damage I aim to maim. She turned to see how the Sanins were faring and was pleased to note that Shizune and Tsunade were fine as was Jiraiya, yet Orochimaru looked worse for wear. Kirei and Ichiro made their way over to the panting Sennin. What should we do? Shizune asked. Kill him. No more problems, no more worry for war. Kirei stated rationally. Jiraiya stared at his pupil in surprise, as did Suand. Kirei. He was once someone you cared about, not anymore. He is a traitor. What if it were Sasuke? Ichiro countered. Kirei turned to him, her eyes as expressionless as always. I would do the same. I am a ninja of Konoha and must eliminate all threats. Since Tsunade is now the new Godime, you must end this man's horrendous existence. Sandaime made the same mistake. Look what happened at the Chunin exam. It grew quiet, everyone contemplating her words. She's right, Jiraiya mumbled solemnly. Jiraiya, Tsunade protested. The third did not die in vain. He died so Konoha can reign in peace. He countered. Kirei didn't care anyway. Guys, Ichiro asked. Everyone gave him their undivided attention. Hate to break it to you, but Orochimaru and Kabuto aren't there anymore. Konoha was quiet and still despite the war that took place. Kirei made 100 clones and disguised them as ninjas in order to help rebuild the city as fast as it could. She wasn't tired, she wasn't hungry, she just felt out of place and as if something was missing. Her mind was elsewhere, on her brother, her father, her uncle who sealed Kyune in her mother, Itachi, and the family she had here. Himitsu has been nothing but supportive, as was Shino, Satsuki, Ichiro, Jiraiya. Sasuke too. She sighed, unsure how to deal with Kakashi seeing as he knew the whole time. She said her goodbyes to the others and made sure she was heading in the right spot. Usually, Kakashi was at the memorial when he wasn't training or reading his book or whatever. She headed there, totally uncaring for the glares she received. She brought back their Godime, they should be worshipping her. Kakashi was kneeling down in front of the stone, his eyes staring at the names. She briefly wondered who brought him there every day of his late life. Whoever it was must have been important for him to want to remember them so much. Kakashi sensed her presence and stood up after finishing with his words. He gave her an eye smile. Kirei, so you're back from your mission with Jiraiya-sama, he said casually. Kirei glared at him, unable to contain her anger. Would you like to know something, Kakashi? His face turned serious at the lack of respect with his name. She smirked. My name is Kazama. He tensed at that word. Narumi. Daughter of, his one good eye was widening by the second, the brother of your sensei and your admirer. The one you looked up to when he was doing experiments on my older brother, Naruto. Care to fill in the rest? Kirei, allow me to explain. You will do more than that. Well, what you said was true. The fourth's name was Kazama Arashi, and your father's name was Kazama Nakahara. Nakahara-san was someone I looked up to when it came to ninjutsu, for he knew how to create jutsus like no one else could. He was a genius in his own right, the same way my sensei was. Nakahara was older than Arashi by a mere 2 years and was happy for him when he became the Yondaime. He was already married to your mother, Uzairu Sanako, from a wind tribe not too far from here. I did know that Orochimaru and Nakahara liked to debate about techniques among other things. I never knew they experimented on you or your brother. All that I know was that after Naruto ran away, Nakahara became more involved with his work. So much involved that after Kyuubi was sealed inside of you, he secluded your family. It was only later, when the Sandaime got rid of Orochimaru and found out where Nakahara was. Continue. What happened to my mother and me? Your mother was found dead, and you were in your crib, screaming and crying. It seemed he had been injecting your mother, which transferred to you and aided in her demise. Kirei felt awful, terrible. Her family was just as bad as everyone told her they were. Did Dad really love Mom? Yes, he did, but something happened to him when he was here. It caused him to become partners with Orochimaru and to experiment on your brother and mother, which lead to harming you. Even today, we are not fully sure as to what will happen to you. Why didn't you tell me? Were you ready to hear all of that? Besides, it was not my place. The third and the council decided your fate. Itachi and I along with the Senins had no say despite everything. Not even the Uzairu clan knew of this. I apologize for not telling you, but how could I tell you something as grave as this? When would I have told you? I suppose you found out from him, right? No, Kabuto told me. Ah, I believe you, Kakashi-sensei. He nodded, and with that, I turned around and headed home. I had some meditating to do. Nightmare frowned. What was wrong with the one who was wielding the sword? The legendary sword that was strong enough to vanquish his very own. He needed to kill the wielder and then he wouldn't have to worry about anything. Yet why? Why was Talim so against this? Why was she so upset with every moment he mentioned his plot? What did she want from him? Is there a problem? He rasped out. Nightmare knew there was no way she could hide anything in her large innocent brown eyes. He watched as the sadness filled it and his chest tightened. What was this feeling? Is there no other way? He knew what she was referring to. I must continue to exist. I cannot do so without getting rid of what threatens my existence. She bit her lip. She was nervous beyond belief. What if the one who wields the sword does not wish to cause you harm? How can you be positive? I must find whoever it is and kill them. No, you mustn't. She grabbed his cursed arm with both hands, her tonfas resting in the tall grass behind her. He was surprised by her touch. Someone who wasn't afraid of his demonic appendage. He stared into her eyes despite the fact that his was hidden beneath his metal helmet. Talim held on tightly, pleading with him, the wielder of the legendary blade is my cousin. Kirei. His eyes widened. This explained a lot. He cupped her cheek with his human hand. For you, I will trust that our paths will not cross in battle. She smiled, tears of joy slipping down her cheeks. What is this feeling? Do you have a name, something I can call you apart from Nightmare? He frowned, though she couldn't say anything. Nightmare is not to your liking. No, you are not a nightmare to me. Siegfried. My name was once Siegfried. I like that name. She looked down at his 3 fingers and traced her hands on each individual one. He decided that he wanted to be human again, to return his sanity and stay with Talim for the rest of his short life. Seeing as the Kyuubi was captured, his job was done for 3 years until they capture Shukaku. Leader knew of what he did with the container and surprisingly was not angry, but was pleased. He even stated that their spot was still waiting for them. Itachi glared. What he wanted was Leader's death. He needed to relax, to calm down. He really wanted to see Kirei again. He did feel bad for not telling her, but it wasn't something he could just bring up. He felt bad already and all he wished was to go back in time and make things right. And that is precisely what he was going to do. But who would he take with him? He stared at his door. Tobi would be perfect. Kirei stared at her weapon, Tsuki, as she sat cross-legged. Tsuki was beautiful, yet now with her half-fusion of LK and DK, she could sense a large evil hidden amongst the greater good. It was odd. The evil called out to her, to destroy, to cause anarchy. It whispered for her to kill and suck the souls out of those victims. She knew that there must be another weapon solely made up of the evil, for it sounded like the same weapon that killed Sakura. What Kirei needed to do was to purify this weapon. She could infuse her spirit energy using LK's power, or she could find someone to do it for her. Maybe she should just ask Talim what she thought. She hadn't seen her cousin teacher in a very long while. She closed her eyes and brought her hands up above her. Winds. It got the message, and circled furiously around her. To others, it resembled a mini tornado, but to Kirei and those of the Uzairu clan, it was a gentle breeze. Feeling satisfied her message was delivered, she stood up. She needed to visit Sasuke in the hospital since the Godime, Tsunade, healed him up. Kirei felt awkward around Sasuke. At times, he was normal Sasuke. The guy who would train until he couldn't stand and the same guy who would protect her if someone were to threaten her. Sasuke was her best friend, yet lately, something had been festering in his mind. She refused to read it in order to discover what it was about, and she refused to ask. She decided that he would tell her when he was ready despite her worry. After she visited Sasuke, she was going to find Shino and train, maybe Satsuki could come along. Kirei, wait up, she turned at the sound of her name. It was Shikamaru. She smiled. Hello, Shikamaru-kun, he stalked over, slouched as ever. Shikamaru couldn't help but feel threatened at the fact that she was stronger than him and capable of so much more, like bringing the 5th Hokage, than he was. What made it worse was the simple fact that she was a girl. What are your plans for the day? The Godime wants to see me about something, most likely troublesome. Would you like some company? He shrugged his shoulders. Well, I have to stop at the hospital to visit Sasuke and Ichiro. They started walking. Ichiro, what was wrong with him? Oh, nothing, he just wanted to learn medical techniques for future missions. Just enough so none of us die. He always forgets that I know the human body the same way I know how to breathe. She giggled and Shikamaru shook his head. Troublesome. A comfortable silence led the atmosphere as the friends entered the hospital. Kirei ignored the directed hatred and Shikamaru noted it yet ignored it as well. Kirei already knew what room her friend was in and Shikamaru followed after her. The door was closed but they both could hear murmuring from the inside. Kirei knocked. Who is it? A familiar voice came from the inside. Kirei. The door opened, revealing Ichiro, wearing a ridiculous-looking apron, Sasuke lying on the mattress looking very angry and a nurse who was trying to feed him. Shikamaru would have laughed if it wasn't so troublesome. Ichiro smiled when his eyes landed on Kirei. Hello, Ichiro, she asked happily. He hugged her and her eyes widened in shock. She slowly hugged back. How are you feeling? I have had better days. And you, are you learning about healing and whatnot? He laughed sheepishly. Yup, but I didn't think it would be this hard, it takes a lot of commitment. Are you going to forego your kenjutsu and ninjutsu? Nope, I could master that in clan techniques and then become a full-fledged fighting medic nin. The plus would be I wouldn't waste a lot of chakra and I could protect myself and heal my teammates. That's great. If you ever need help, I can help you. The human body is to me as the sun is to the sky. He laughed. She turned her attention to Sasuke and the nurse while Shikamaru and Ichiro began their conversation. The nurse groaned in frustration. Uchiha-sama, you need to eat. How can you leave if you don't eat? He glared at her and she cowered in fear. Kirei inwardly sighed. Maybe I could help, she asked taking the seat beside the woman. The woman shook her head and handed Kirei the food. Good luck, I spent most of my time nagging at him. Hopefully you'll have some luck. The woman was so annoyed and tired, that she didn't care that the Kyuubi brat was in the same area as her. She left the room looking more relaxed than ever. Sasuke stared at her, unsure of what to do or say. He was a bit embarrassed seeing as the last time they saw each other, Itachi nearly killed him. His fist clenched at the mere thought. He stared at his lap, his hands as his knuckles turned white. Sasuke. He was irritated that she was still near him despite the fact that he tried to protect her from him yet he was the one who needed it. And what did they need with her anyway? You okay? Fi. He couldn't finish the word because Kirei took the chance when his mouth was open to shove some food down his throat. He blinked and she smiled. Say why was she being so nice to him? He was a weak failure. A sorry excuse for an Uchiha. He chewed and swallowed, the food wasn't the reason why he wouldn't eat. The reason was because he was too angry. He sighed and opened his mouth letting her feed them. He was too busy with his thoughts to care. You know. Quote. His full attention was on her. When I saw you, I was worried what you would do if you saw him. You are strong Sasuke, you are mentally stable, you have friends and you have people who care for you. You are different than Itachi and you going on your hatred and power-hungry ways will just make you like him. She was lying but this was the image he portrayed to his brother, she wasn't about to ruin everything Itachi had built. He stared at her. Sasuke, if you kill him, what will you do after? Once your purpose is completed, what will happen to you? To your team, to us? She looked up into his eyes. As soon as you end his life, yours will end too. You lived for that moment and when it happens, an emptiness will fill inside you then what? You are young, you have plenty of time before it happens. So wait, the longer you wait, the stronger you'll get. Itachi is not going anywhere and nor are you. You promised to stay with me. She read his mind, she knew what he was thinking, what he was planning. He wanted to get stronger and he believed that this village was hindering him. It pained her to see her friend like this. She had to do something. She continued feeding him in silence. Itachi, She wanted to speak with him, to clear her head. She also wanted to know what is the problem between the both of them. The plate was finished by now and she stood up and rested it on the counter beside the bed. I must take my leave. Goodbye Sasuke, see you soon. She gave a soft smile then turned to Ichiro, her face brightening. Bye Ichiro. After the farewells, Shikamaru and Kirei made their way to the Hokage Tower. She was smiling while eating a pocky stick. Kirei had the whole box as company as she gazed down at her city for she was sitting on the Yondaime's head. Today was a really good day. After going to the tower with Shikamaru who was promoted to Chunin, they headed out to eat with his team. She then discovered where Shinoa team would be and she stayed with them for a bit before taking Shino away and updating him on everything and sparring. Satsuki joined in later and cooked them a lovely dinner. All in all, it was a great day. Himitsu was even there to eat with her. The wind blew, and Kirei frowned. That wind. It was a message from Talim. She was coming or she was already on the road. It seemed she had to stay here for a while though. Kirei didn't mind, Talim was family. She shoved another pocky stick in her mouth. She missed Itachi. After speaking with Kakashi, she understood why Itachi didn't say anything. She was still kind of mad at him for what happened to Kyune and Sasuke but she loved him. Forgiving and forgetting was something she was used to. It's been about a month anyway. Her eyes watered and she furiously wiped them away. It was her fault anyway, she was being selfish. She should have just spoken to him. The tears she wiped away came down and she did nothing to stop them this time. This is Konoha, why is it so peaceful Itachi-kun? Tobi asked as he hopped up and down. Itachi twitched, he was here on a mission. Tobi was the only member he actually trusted at this point. Kisame has a big mouth, Hidan and Kazuku were the ones to do it and the rest were weird. He briefly wondered if she was alive or if she was dying. He stopped and so did Tobi. He closed his eyes and looked for her presence. There. Itachi-kun, have you snuck into Konoha so easily all the time? Yes, he mumbled not really feeling the need to speak. But since Tobi went with him, he might as well give him responses. Why did he need Tobi? Ah yes, just in case. Also, he'd be good to have as an ally. Tobi. Itachi-kun, we are friends, give me a nickname. Tobi, Toba's shoulders sagged, if you please, would wait at a distance and then I will give you a signal to come out. Tachi-kun, you're no fun. Itachi resisted the urge to roll his eyes and teleported to the monument. Tobi followed right after. Kirei had finished the box some time ago and was staring into nothingness. She should head on home, it was getting late. She stood up and turned around. Her mouth fell open and her knees felt weak yet she remained standing. Itachi stood there, his cloak on, his elastic gone, his hat nowhere to be seen. She didn't know whether she should scream or cry. She tried to speak, she really did, but nothing came out. She swallowed. You're all right, he half asked, half stated. He took a step towards her and she could feel her resolve crumbling. Itachi wanted to hold her yet knew it was not the time. He had some explaining to do. And, you, Kirei mumbled. Itachi was surprised but did not let tea show on his face. Stomach wound, he could see the worry trying to hide. It was silent, neither of them knew what to say, thought they knew what they wanted to. Why? She asked. Why didn't you tell me? First thing was first, she wanted to hear it from his mouth. You've had many opportunities to tell me about my family yet you never did. Why would I say something like that to you? Why place the burden of you on me? It was not my story to tell. Who should have told you were the Sandaime and the 3 Sennin? I would rather you never knew anything than to see you hurting over something so important to you. I'm your boyfriend, not your mentor, and you wouldn't believe me if I told you anyway. Comforting you is my job, not breaking your dreams of once having a perfect family. Kirei felt her eyes water again. He was right, but the fact that she heard it from Kabuto. Still, she should have given Itachi a chance. I'm sorry, I got the whole story from Kakashi. Itachi knew she must be hurting. Could you tell me about my brother? She asked softly. Your brother was the opposite of me. The only thing that we shared in common was our prodigy status. He was a very interesting person. He once believed that every human was good, somewhat like you, until your father became mad. He ran away and we later met up. So he's alive. He nodded and she let out a breath of relief. Would I ever be able to see him? He nodded. So they took Kyuubi away and you survived? She nodded. Her tears began silently rolling down her cheeks. I didn't know Leader would have tricked me, which was why I went after them. I had a feeling. And Sasuke, why would you torment him so? I cannot say. You do remember why I killed my clan. You do remember everything I told you. Yes, but then there is no arguing over something that has already been decided. But Itachi, but what about Sasuke and how what you did might affect him? He needs to fulfill the Uchiha mission and this is the only way he would know how. Itachi frowned. Do you care for him? He is my best friend, I just wish he would stay here with me and happy like I am happy. You told me to take care of him and I have and he has done the same for me. I wouldn't want him to suffer like you did. I don't know, I care for him because he is family. Kirei, you're too pure. She innocently blinked up at him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. She understood now. You are too good for me. No, I am the best for you, we balance each other out. Did I tell you today that I love you? He asked. Kirei shook her head. No, she whispered. I love you Kirei, he smiled at her. She could feel her cheeks turn red. I love you Itachi, just the way you are. He wiped her tears and kissed her forehead and stood up. He looked back to where Toby was hiding and he came out. Kirei blinked, how could this man see with that mask? She smiled trying to hold back her laughter. The man stopped right beside them and Kirei noticed that he was taller than Itachi. His mask was facing her and she got the distinct feeling that he was seizing her up. She didn't have any weapons save for the scroll that carried Tsuki. Itachi-kun, this is your girl. Kirei blushed again and Itachi glared at him. He circled them then turned to Itachi. I approve, he laughed to himself. She's very strong, she just needs to fight with her head and not her heart. How did he? Don't bother, Itachi murmured darkly. She giggled, anyone who could annoy him was special in her eyes. Toby laughed. Well, Toby wants to know what we're doing now. We're staying, Itachi finalized. The mission will begin in 2.5 years and we are in vacation. Toby will be staying here for 2.5 years. No, we will leave Konoha by the end of this week. Toby nodded. He ruffled her hair. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too Toby-san. Itachi hugged her and she hugged back. See you tomorrow. She nodded. It was in the afternoon when Talim arrived at the house. Kirei wasn't surprised by her but by her guest. He was a head taller than her cousin and was covered in dark blue armor. The only thing visible was this large brown arm that looked demonic. It had 3 large fingers. The man also had glowing red eyes and the helmet had flowing red hair. She blinked. The sword he was carrying was a broadsword. The sword was evil and it caused Tsuki to wring in irritation. Kirei stared. The evil from the sword was the same evil as the one in her Tsuki. She stared at this man where his glowing eyes were and smiled. Hello. The man did not respond and Kirei didn't expect him to. This is Siegfried, a friend of mine. Can you help him? How? Well actually, we have a lot of explaining to do. Kirei led them to her backyard and took out her weapon. It was pulsing as was Siegfried's weapon. She set them down beside each other and they sat cross-legged in a small triangle. Kirei looked at her cousin wondering what she wanted. You see, the weapon you have is a legendary weapon known as Soul Calibur. Kirei's eyes widened. The sword that Siegfried has is a legendary weapon known as Soul Edge. Both weapons change forms depending on who wields them. I used to wield Soul Calibur until it passed on to you. It chose you Kirei. She blinked, not sure what this meant. Soul Edge is evil and it poisons the user's mind making them into soul-sucking vampires who need the souls of those they killed to survive. Siegfried did not know this when he picked it up and now. Talim turned to his arm. The evil of the sword is manifesting on his person. Kirei concluded. Talim nodded. His sanity was almost gone and returns to him when he is not wielding the sword. The first time he lost his sanity was when he was defeated in battle and his sword broke into pieces that scattered across the globe. I have already collected all and have given them to the sword except for one. The one inside Tsuki, I mean, Soul Calibur. Talim nodded. Soul Calibur stayed with our clan in order to be purified but it seemed the priestess there were not strong enough to remove the taint and shard. If we were to purify Soul Calibur, the shard would go to Soul Edge which would cause surrounding people to go mad and possibly erase Siegfried's sanity forever. We should purify Siegfried-san. I am a priest and I can make it so the influence of Soul Edge's evil does not corrupt you. It may remove that arm of yours. I am not too sure. I can also contain the evil of Soul Edge so that only its wielder will hear its calling. Are you sure you wish to be placed with this burden? I can think of no one else. He mumbled. I will begin with the sword yet in order for me to do that I must purify Soul Calibur. If you could stand 50 paces away from me, I just need both swords. Kirei fused her priestess powers with some of LK's powers and set both swords side by side. Shenxi grabbed the hilt of Soul Edge, it called to her yet she easily ignored it. Before her eyes, it turned into an exact copy of Tasuki and she stared before setting it down side by side. She sat down in front of her own weapon and cast her hands over it. She knew what she should do and closed her eyes. She calmly began chanting, her weapon glowing a faint blue. It was easier than she expected and slowly, a shard glowing red emerged from her weapon. She opened her eyes and used her telekinesis to escort the shard into Soul Edge. To contain its power within itself will be difficult for she needs to create barriers. Locks, if you will. The first lock will contain its evil allures, the second will contain its evil manipulation and the third lock will contain its destructiveness. The same thing was on her own legendary sword except it was different resins for the locks. Both swords were too powerful for mere mortals though she was not one, she would not walk around attracting attention to her spiritual strength. She waved her hand over the weapon feeling its evil and how it worked. It looked for your weakness, your insecurities and hopes and made you believe you could achieve it by listening to it. What an intriguing weapon. She closed her eyes and began her chant. Talim watched, awed at the display of power from her cousin. Her aura was white and her hands were glowing blue as she chanted. It seemed her spiritual energy has improved. What then? He asked. Talim was startled. What would I do afterward? Continue to live, we can wonder the world and help those in need or look for challenges. I wish to stay with you, I do posse's priestess powers and some healing ability. If it is okay with you. Yes, I would enjoy that. They were shook out of their reverie when Kirei called out. Siegfried, it's your turn. Talim giggled and watched as he headed towards her. Take off your upper armor. Sasuke stared up at the moon as he walked. He did feel a bit guilty for what he was about to do but in the end, he needed to do this, he needed to do it now. He broke her promise but surely she would forgive him, right? He hoped. He didn't want to hurt her, that was the last thing he wanted but he did want to become strong for himself and for her. He hated that she was stronger than him. Maybe he sold stay with her. Maybe things would get better if he stayed here. He stopped. Someone was sitting on the bench. They stood up into the light and Sasuke looked on at his electric blue eyes. His dark hair tinged blue. He stopped, staring at his rival. He was weaponless, defenseless. Sasuke frowned, that was unusual of him. Where do you think you're going, Uchiha? The look on his face made Sasuke freeze. He was curious to know what he did to Indigo to make him so upset. He shouldn't worry since he was unarmed. Go home, Indigo. No, not until you tell me why you're leaving. Sasuke scrutinized him. He was serious. Why do you want to know so bad? If you leave, you will crush Kirei. I can't allow you to hurt her. You love her, yet you hurt her. You don't belong with her. Not at all. Sasuke stared. Why did everyone get the notion that he was in love with her? It must be true. Others see his actions and they must know what it means. No, Indigo was just trying to fill his head IWTH nonsense. He stared at him. Well then, it looked like he was going to fight but how would he fight with no weapons? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. She is willing to sacrifice herself for you yet all you do is demand more or turn your back on her. I will kick your ass if you take one more step. Sasuke got into a loose taijutsu stance, he didn't want to waste too much energy on him. He decided to use his speed to his advantage. When Indigo didn't move, he dashed forward and hit the back of his neck. Indigo fell down out cold and he caught him. Sasuke after all, considered him a good rival and an okay friend. He placed him on the bench. Sorry, and headed on his way.